Welcome to Bending Over Backwards with James Adkins. I'm your host, Dr. James Adkins, where each week we take a deep dive into what it takes to break through barriers and change the game, whether that's in medicine, business, or life. And today I'm honored to have Mark Tarbell, who is a just famous celebrity chef. He's in the Arizona Culinary Hall of Fame. He's a James Beard Award nominee, and just you got the best restaurant in town, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Coming
Thank
there
you,
for 26 years. I've been coming to your restaurant, and I think it's certainly the best in Arizona, one of the best in the world. I mean, I love it.
Thank you.
You see my family and I are there frequently. Thank you.
All the time, and I so appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's always a joy.
Thank you. So take me back on your journey. What got you into being a chef? That had to be, what was that, 30 years ago, 40 years ago?
Well, actually quite a long time ago. So, I mean, I don't know where to put a pin in it because I don't think we have more than 7 or 8 hours here today. But really quickly from the beginning, food found me. I love to eat. I love to make. My mom made all our bread that I ever ate. I actually didn't know until I was about 10 that bread was from stores, that you could actually get it from stores. And then I discovered Wonder Bread, which you're too young to know, and I fell in love with that. Mostly use it as a softball, make big softballs out of it and whack it with a bat. But no, I started. I love to cook. I love to cook with my mom, but mostly I love to eat, and that's kind of where it all came about. And then I love taste and flavor. I was really I get really focused and obsessed on certain things. I think I've eaten at my mom's side when I was about 7. Maybe 7 or 8 pounds of cookie dough that she knew about. She's always like, "Where's my cookie dough?" But then I started, working in high school, and I got a job as a dishwasher, and I liked being around food. That's why I like that.
That's how it started.
And one of the benefits then, it's very inelegant, I'm sorry, but you could eat whatever was left over on the plates. And I was like, "This is awesome." At 14 years old, that's pretty good. But then I noticed that the cooks could make their own food. I'm like, I want that job because I can make my own food and I have to eat off other people's plates.
Yeah.
And frankly, the service staff paid more attention to you. So
Sure.
especially the females.
Was that in Arizona? I mean,
I was born in New Hampshire, and this was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Where I started dishwashing, and that's where it started.
So take me back along the high points. So somewhere along the way, I know you're professionally educated, and how did that manifest?
Well, I had a tremendous wanderlust, which was both in my mind and in actual physical. I like to wander, and loved adventure. So school was where I liked to wander a lot from. And so after high school, when I was in my senior year coming out of high school, I didn't have, all the options in the world. So I created one through a friend whose uncle owned a hotel in Amsterdam. I just manifested and went down and visited him in the Florida Keys during a tropical storm and asked for a job. And he was so willing and excited about getting rid of me. He didn't even let me in the house. That he's like, "I'll do whatever you want, kid. Just get out of here." So I got a job as an apprentice after high school in Amsterdam. And then that's when I fell in love with cooking. That's when I decided it was for me. It was a full year apprenticeship.
Okay.
So it was very intense. Every show you've ever watched, Gordon Ramsay or any of those people, that was the chef that I worked for. He was insane. But really great. I learned a lot, and I love the intensity. I love the roughness of it. I love the coarseness of it, and I love the creativity of it. So I applied to schools around Europe. A friend of my mom's who lived in Paris suggested the best school in Paris at the time was École de Cuisine La Varenne. The problem was it only took 10 professional students a year, and they had a long waiting list. So
that sounds French. Is that in
it's
Paris?
Very French. Well, no, they're so good at that. No. You know nothing about this.
No, I don't. Even though I married a woman who grew up in France, I know nothing.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, me being young and sort of ambitious and really not thinking too much, you could call for a couple of pennies in a payphone. I called him like twice a week or once a week for 3 months, and finally they got so annoyed with me. They said, "If you never call us again and you get us a check,
we'll let you in.
We have a space. We'll let you in." So I went the next year and spent about 4 years in Paris. Graduated from that school, worked in 2 Michelin restaurants, 3-star and a 1-star.
Those are in Europe? Those
Yes,
are
but all in Paris.
all
Yeah.
in Paris.
Yeah, Michel Pesquet and Taillevent. And then I also went to wine school, Académie de Vin, which was Stephen Spurrier's school. The Judgment of Paris guy, Stephen
Wow.
Spurrier. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I've had some good bottles of wine in your restaurant. I'm a fan of your selection of wine. Who was your biggest mentor? I mean, someone along the way was your mentor. You talk about your mother.
Yes.
And was she a chef, a
No,
professionally
gosh,
trained?
no. Yeah, Mom, don't listen to this. I know you're not a podcaster, but she's 91 and
Oh, wow.
she's just
longevity.
talked to her an hour ago. Yeah, she's
Cool.
great. And I love her. She's fun. What I took most is she just was laughing this morning and just having fun, and she's still active. But no, Mom never used recipes. So as you can imagine, there was 60% of the time it was outstanding, and then the other 40 was where's the dog?
Where's the dog? Never use that one.
And mentors, I've had many, honestly, but the chefs over the years. But one of the early mentors was a guy named James Ndasikas, and he was considered voted one of the best hotelier in the world for many years in the 70s. And I got to know him through my uncle, who went to school with him, and then he went on to go to the Swiss Hotel School, James Ndasikas, and had a very storied career, and was really one of the foundational godfathers of all American cookery, American wines, very supportive of the early days of Napa Valley. Started the American Institute of Wine and Food with Robert Mondavi and Julia Child. Just very instrumental. And I was lucky enough to meet him, and he was had a profound impact on me. He had a hotel in San Francisco, and I lived on East Coast. And after graduating from culinary school and all of that, we flew out together, and my dad introduced me to him, and that became very impactful.
Yeah. California wines were just becoming a big deal, right?
Well, they were nothing in the 70s. They were very much looked down upon.
Yeah.
It was basically, Gallo, and not that Gallo was bad. Gallo was great wine. It's just there was a lot of bulk.
Screw top back when that wasn't cool. And,
so Inglenook and things like that, and Night Train and all those great wines. Boone's Farm, Ripple,
Sure. Boone's Farm. I had a little bit of that in high school.
Mogan David 2020. The Americas made a lot of great wine back then. Andres Cold Duck. But what happened was, and it was principally I attribute it to Robert Mondavi, who really just said, I want our wines in Napa Valley to be on the table, the same table as all the greatest Bordeaux in the world. And having had a front row seat to it, and I was very close to him. I used to stay at his house in Napa and cooked with him, and I was very fortunate to be very close to Robert. And I watched him in a front row seat, he pounded that message. He had only a couple of things that he said, but he said them over and over again. We used to kind of kid about it when we were us in the business, because you'd invite him to speak and it was the same thing.
Same message.
Napa Valley will be on the same table as the greatest wines in the world. And then he had a few other things, but he wouldn't vary. It was like he never said anything else. He was so committed to it.
I agree with him. I love California wines, and I get a lot of flack from my family.
Yeah.
That the European wines have less additives, less color. There's all this. You're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I mean, I'm constantly my wife. Oh, you love those California wines? They're pumped full of sugar and additives, and these European wines are so pristine. They're what? Do you have any input on that?
Well, I think that a belief is just we're about anything is we're just not quite sure.
Yeah,
is all it really is. But so people have a lot of beliefs. Now there are facts behind that. Yes, in California, all wines all over the world are governed, most of them, and very strictly so. And then there are people that cheat.
Sure.
But mostly there's a lot of strict governance around how it's made and what's allowed. And yes, in California, you can add enzymes and extracts and what they call purple, which is an extracted grape juice from wine, very, very dark and very purpley and very thick and viscous. And it does enhance the texture of wines more immediately. Like a Cabernet on its own is not normally drinkable after 3 minutes, of its being produced. It usually takes years to kind of soften out because it's a very tannic wine generally. So some of these things do help. to make a great wine. But I think we should take away the conversation from what's added and what's not. But winemakers should be given permission to make the best wine they know to, given what they want to express. And historically, the blend of Bordeaux, for example, with the 5 different classic blends, do you think they just sat around in the 1800s and said, we're going to just plant these grapes and we're going to blend them? No, it was like, oh, the cab tastes like crap this year. Let's add some Merlot. That's gonna help it, because no one's gonna buy it if I don't.
Yeah.
And we're making wines to appeal to people, right? So all blending was probably originally done field blending, meaning you didn't know what grape variety was in there. You just squeezed them all and made alcoholic grape juice, and that was a blend. But then it turned in. We've all made it so fancification, and rule based, but I just love people that just make great wine, and however they
Me
do
too.
it, I'm really not that concerned about it.
Yeah.
If they blend a couple different vintages and it tastes better, fantastic. I'm a happy guy because, hey,
It's all about taste.
our job is to enjoy it. We have a simple job.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So in your restaurant, consistency and creativity. I mean, that's
Yes.
one of the things I love about your place. I mean, like I said, I've been going there for 27 years. There are dishes that are still on the menu that taste better than they did 27 years ago, But how do you that's tricky too, isn't it? Consistency and creativity.
Yes.
How do you walk that line?
Well, I attribute it to 3 popular letters that people kick around now, A, D, D, which one of the things that with someone of myself, there's one of the conditions of ADD is hyperfocus. So I've been able to hyper focus on consistency and I'm still interested in it. I can lose interest in things very quickly, but in this, for whatever reason, I have hyper focused on consistency. You mentioned that, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because it's very important to us. Because I believe, and it's more than just for me. I believe that most people want something they can depend on in their life. And when it comes to food, it's rather emotional. Like you want that whoopee, that dish that you remember and it brings back taste memories,
Sure.
or it just feeds your soul.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm eating this and now I feel better and everything's better. Yeah. So that's why I do it, because I really believe that's how I eat too, but many people eat. So those are things and it's very difficult to train a staff of young, ambitious, creative chefs to do something the same way over and over and over and over again. So I have them, I teach them to do different things around that, attach different values to it. One of them is that is the job, if you're a line cook, to do things perfectly over and over and over and over again. And then the window dressing around that, the gold lining is occasionally you get to create a new dish. And maybe that dish will work and maybe it won't, but it'll be fun to do. So you throw it out there and hope that it sticks, right? That we always look for home runs. But so I reframe them. The job is that. And what I say is the salmon pays for truffles. And if you want to play with truffles at Tarbell's, get the salmon right.
I heard you keep the truffles locked up in a safe.
We don't. We actually, and it's crazy because they're like $3,200 a pound.
$3,200 a pound.
At minimum, it depends. It's a market, whatever.
Sure.
But that's for white truffles from Alba. We're very particular about where we get them and who we get them from and what time of year. There's a beginning and an end to every season, and sometimes it takes a few weeks or more to get the aromatics up on truffles, and we'll only buy them when they're at their peak.
So when do they? What is that? October, November, December? When is that?
Yeah, generally October to December, but it can be early, late. It's not a science. It's all about moisture and all of that. A number of other temperature and other things. Yeah. Yeah. So we start in October-ish and then we end in February, March-ish. So white truffles first, and that's a rather short season, and then black truffles from Provence.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back. So you're a young man. You're learning to be a chef. This is the 80s, 70s. 70s, 80s.
Thank you very much. I'll take the 80s.
80s. Just kidding. You're not that old. But it's cool to be a chef today. Yeah. It's really cool. But I'm not so sure when I was, 12 years old. I'm probably a little older than you or same age. I don't know how it was. I don't know if it was so cool when you were, so How was that? You're a young man. You're interested in girls. You're interested in a career and figuring it out. But you're interested in food. I mean,
Yeah.
Share with me a little bit about that.
Well, as it turns out, not having a lot of game, that people like to eat.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
they do.
and dinners can be romantic.
Yes, they can.
So I learned that.
Okay, makes sense.
And that's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, so there was no Food Network. Julia Child was off the air. She probably was the most notable American TV chef, that or the Galloping Gourmet. And, so there was a gap in, sort of, I would say, celebrity chef. I mean, maitre d's actually had a moment from like the 60s and 70s. So you really needed to know the maitre d' or the owner of a restaurant in New York.
Okay.
The chefs some were known. There were a handful around the country that had some name and recognition, but it wasn't, Andre Sultan or people like that in New York, but very much not celebrity. There was no end one. And my grandparents, who were fantastic, my mother's parents, she went to Vassar, and she was one of the first women to go to MIT, and she was an architecture student.
Wow.
And my grandpa went to Harvard and Harvard MBA. And so their framework, their paradigm was that I was throwing away my life quickly with the idea of I was going to cook. I mean, they're like, oh, it's cute. You can do that for a year, but then get serious and, and get some grades back.
They should see you now.
Yeah, well, they were very happy in the end, but I just got lucky.
It's not luck, Mark.
Well, there was no
luck's part of it. A lot of preparation.
If you think about it, Celebrity Chef, it all started because of a guy named Shep Gordon in a live culinary. He was a big agent in the movie and the rock and roll world, and he fell in love with chefs and thought they were underpaid and underrepresented. So he created live culinary with Roger Verger and Daniel Boulou and Jean-Georges and, Dean Faring and all these people and Emeril Lagasse. And that was his stable of chefs. And he literally created it. And he got Emeril his show on the Food Network in 1999 and all these people, he really helped. And then he quit because he said there's no money in it.
He was wrong.
Well, maybe now, but it's not rock and roll money, But at any rate, so... I talked about ADD. Now, adrenaline is the natural Ritalin, and kitchens are very intense. So when things are really intense, I'm super calm. My BP is about 55, doing 600, dinners, chaos are all around me. I see everything clearly. That's kind of a thing. And so it found me, I think, rather than me finding it, because I felt very calm and I felt like I belonged and I was in control and things like that. So, but I really did enjoy it, the creative part and the dynamic part. So I got lucky because the Food Network started in 1999 after my restaurant opened, but there was already celebrity. There was already building celebrity alliances going on.
I like the adrenaline's a new Ritalin.
Yeah.
What keeps you focused. Now I know you've got a couple projects you're working on.
Yeah, principally, we started a catering company on purpose 2 years ago in 23, and we'd always done catering as a service. Like, if you were Emmanuel called, I would say, yes, we'll be right over. So we did that for years. And in my past career, I did a lot of catering and, in F&B, but we designed it. And, the first year we did about 73 parties in 23, and then we did over 300 last year. And we've done over 250 in the last 90 days. So it's growing very quickly. Yeah. And we're taking on venues. We have the Bond, which is across the street from Tarbell's. It started last month, and I just took over the Boulder House up near Carefree as a catering venue. Gorgeous place, and we're working on one more to complete the trifecta for the year.
Congratulations.
So that's very exciting to me. I love bringing experiences out in the desert or into your home, or get on a plane and go to Montana and do it at your place up there or in a field. Or it doesn't really matter. I love creating experiences, and my team does too. So that's what we're doing at a very high touch, high hospitality kind of. We're restaurateurs going in the catering business instead of, it's a different approach, I think. But then the wine, I have Tarbell's Chachamouche, and that's going to have a big year this year. I've been always wanting to make wine, and I'm making wine in the Lodi area, which is the awesome, dirty little secret of the best place to make wine in California. And
where is that?
It's in the Sierra Nevada foothills, south of Sacramento. Okay, up against the slopes that start to go up into the foothills, and the mountains. And it's long been known for bulk wine.
Okay.
for big thousands of acres of bulk wine. But there's 3 different microclimates there, 7 different soil compositions, very complex. There's very cold microclimates there that you can do Albarino and Chardonnay and Picpoul and all these great European grapes, and they do very well with no added acid and just natural, beautiful. And then you can make high alcohols in some of the areas.
Oh, love those.
Yeah, everyone likes that. The alcohol.
Big red ones. I like. Why is it that I like those?
Well, they
American palates.
they get you there quicker.
They do get you there quicker. That's for sure. So, my background is spine and pain. So
Yes.
I run a spine and pain program. So you have a spine story. I'm always interested. Maybe it's not, you didn't share with me.
I don't
Curious.
share it. I never do. But, I was thinking about that today, and it's interesting. And, maybe we can have a session after this.
Yeah.
But when I was in Boston, I moved from Europe and from Paris to Boston. I was a sous chef and then chef there and a baker, night baker. So I worked like 18 hours a day or more, sometimes 20. And so, but I had a Volkswagen Bug, a red one, in 1967, I think, and it was a real piece. I didn't even have floorboards in it. I had to be like pop rivets and whatever to make the floorboards. It was. I bought it for $50. So anyway, that was my car, and I dropped one of my coworkers off from the restaurant I was working on, and when she stepped away from saying goodbye from the window, we weren't dating. She just kind of reached in and shook my hand. I have this picture in my mind. A drunk driver rear-ended me going about 50 because I was just parked along the side of the street.
Oh my
on
goodness.
one of the, yeah. And so that
started it.
well, yeah. And so it was an old car. Thankfully, the seat broke out. And so I flipped over backwards and it was on top of me. It was really disorienting. And I crashed into 3 other cars and it was really dramatic.
goodness.
But they ended up leaving. But
Oh, they left the scene.
yes.
Oh, that's kind.
Well, yeah.
Jeez.
So, yeah. But, luckily,
But lucky the seat broke, like you're saying.
seat
Absorbed
broke.
some of the force.
it broke right
Or you'd
out.
have been in bigger trouble.
Probably bigger. I would have probably launched through the windshield.
Yeah.
And gotten run over. But at any rate, I couldn't feel my leg for a few days. Went to Mass General. I had no real use of my left leg, and so they were really, they're great doctors there, very famous place. But I was always really hesitant to do anything surgically in my life. I was just against it.
Good.
And they're like, yeah, we can fix it. You compress your spine. They showed me the little squash
Discs.
disc, and my body was just not happy with what happened. I was really not happy because I'm not really tall, but I was taller then, about an inch taller. I'm lying.
It does take age does take height from you.
also
Your
compressing
discs,
spines.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I call it an inch. It was really more
Probably
like
2
a quarter
inches.
of an inch, but yeah, I was like 6 inches taller. I was a center for the Celtics. So anyway, so I just suffered. I went home. They released me against their wishes, and eventually got my feeling back in my leg. And then I took a long journey of trying massage,
Everything.
and stretching, and everything in the planet. I did have a lot of discomfort for about a decade or more, about 15 years, but I just powered through it.
Sure.
I did lose mobility and things like that, but I just kept after it. And
best
eventually,
medicine. Yeah.
I found a combination of 2 things that probably got me over the edge. Was a Rolfer that did non-standard Rolfing, which is just getting things moving and getting things malleable and using a lot of soft tissue stuff. And then Dr. Zhao, who was an acupuncturist who used to work on Madame Zhao. He was from China.
Okay.
And a very celebrated. He did both studies in China, Western and Eastern, and used to work on Fernand Marcos. I mean, he was an interesting guy, and he also worked on Barclay and Ainge back in the day. They couldn't do it in their contract, but he did, and he really helped me a lot, energetically, and kept me healthy. And sadly, he passed, but so that helped a lot. And then, of course, I think the body wants to move.
Wants to move. So true.
And I just started moving again, and.
So true, Mark. If most spine injuries, if you get up and move, you're better.
Yeah, and stress yourself a little bit.
So much better. Yeah.
And I love to rock climb and hike and extreme hiking and skiing and all that stuff. But I've fallen into doing boxing training. I don't box because I don't want to get hit or be hit, but the training around it, intensity around it,
Cardio and
yeah,
upper body
movement, yeah.
Gasses you quick. So that's part of your workout routine today. That's actually one of my favorite things to ask people, because my morning routine, my foundation is crucial for just my function and my happiness. My family would say I'm a friendlier fella when I'm on my routine. I'm fascinated by people's morning routine, because your restaurant's been successful for decades, but you're expanding. Yes. You're growing. You're pushing. I assume. I think you're a pretty
Very
ambitious
so.
fella.
Very.
So how do you balance that?
Well, I think everything, and you, I think, would agree, is all about your physical health. So I have 4 words that, I always like words to filter decisions through. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you my 4 words: health, love, freedom, and abundance. So if anything you do, health is non-negotiable.
100%.
Because if I don't have health, I don't have a life.
Over.
And if I don't have health, I don't have love. And the love for me is very simple. It's my wife and my kids and my friends. And then beyond that circle, it's my, guests and friends and customers and community. But that's where I focus that on. And so without health, you have no stamina or any way to do that. And then freedom, that's the thing where you have to make compromises sometimes, because you make a decision to do something, it takes away certain freedom. And abundance is yes, it is monetary, but money is just a tool. And it's a lubricant to enhance your life and others too. And it's needed. It's just not to be first in line. The abundance part is more of the abundant attitude.
Sure.
That you live in an abundant attitude, it's much more peaceful. So my routine, I took it from Robin Sharma at 5 a.m. So that's easy. But I get up and I do 20 minutes of sweating, cortisol, get things moving. And it's a lot of stretching and movement and twisting and things like that. And then 20 minutes of meditation, and then 20 minutes of reading, things that I'm interested in.
Okay.
And then my day starts.
That's a good foundation. And sleep? Are you pretty disciplined with? That's become a hot topic. I mean, I'm an old man. I'm 8:30.
Yeah.
My wife, she's got to deal with it.
You're not old. But I this is not a component. I'm only good at getting up and doing the first part, and then I'm pretty much a disaster after that. But what I'm building into my life is a little more in discipline. There's freedom about what I do and how I spend my time. Mm-hmm. The sleep thing, to be fair, I've always only needed 3 or 4 hours of sleep from when I can remember. I've been blessed with just a lot of energy, I guess. Mm-hmm. I try to get 6 hours now, because I've heard it's good for you to have 8.
Yeah. Wow.
It's rare that I'll get more than 6.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not suggesting to anyone that's good. I understand the value of sleep, and I do everything wrong. Like I'll have a couple. I work. So I'll have a couple glasses of wine late with my wife, which you're not supposed to do for sleep.
Wow.
And
I have a tendency to do that most nights.
Yeah, I'll eat a bag of potato chips, or whatever. And I know that's not supposed to be good. So I'll get there.
Sure.
It's a journey.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, I saw in your restaurant, which my wife is a big fan of, your no seed oils.
Yes.
Because that's a hot topic in the community, right? I mean, was that hard? Was that hard to do? Because you see restaurants trying to do that. That's my undergrad degree is nutrition, so I'm a big fan of human nutrition. But where was that a wholesale change in the kitchen? Was that hard?
Well, I will answer that in a broad way. I've always thought one of my major responsibilities, quietly, is to use all my resources and knowledge to get healthy food into people without them knowing it. For example, from the beginning, I was farm to table and organic largely. I never told people about that. Mm-hmm. My fish was sustainable from day one. It's sustainably harvested and or organic from day one. But I never put it on the menu, because I didn't want people to go, I'm having a good time. Now I have to go, oh my God, is it healthy? Is it isn't?
Sure.
So the seed oil thing, there's many different preferences, and there are some real things out there that are wrong and need to be addressed. But a lot of things in life is a dietary preference or just the mood, or it's the latest thing. And things go very quickly. They light up very quickly now because of information, how it's disseminated, and they die very quickly. So So I have a proactive approach to everything. That I'm always looking for what's next. I found the seed oil conversation about 2 years ago. So I like to either I move quickly because I think there's substance to it, or I move slowly and because I want to get more research and not just be the latest. Oh, now it kills you.
Yeah.
Because in my lifetime, I mean,
Everything's
it used to
bad
be
for
eggs
you.
killed you and butter killed you, and I'm like, I don't think so. And now it doesn't, and fat killed you, which
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Oh.
So
What a disaster that was.
right, it's wrong. I mean, it's just flat out wrong. I never stopped using it because I didn't believe it. I have 7 relatives that grew into their late 90s, and they ate bacon, eggs, butter, toast, drank.
Sure.
It didn't kill them.
Yeah.
Age, life did
Yeah.
eventually.
Stress will kill you.
Well, stress will get you for sure.
Yeah.
Working on that. So seed oil. So I was already a largely seed oil free because we use olive oil for everything in the sauces and cooking and things. And the trick was the fryer, right? We were using canola oil, to be honest. And there's argument whether there's some good canola oil producers or not, whatever. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. But it was tallow, or using pork fat. And I'm like, I'm worried about that because we've been taught that it's bad.
Sure.
But people live for years on it.
Yeah.
Like forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Saturated fat was bad.
Yeah,
We were told to, and we were wrong.
And we were wrong. And then, so that was the big piece I had to get over scientifically, that was going to be at least a responsible choice for me to switch to.
Sure.
More, I'm not going to get into the big political discussion that's out there about food now, which is insane to me. It shouldn't be political at all. And I'm not against science necessarily. I do think there's a lot of ways to interpret data, and there's a lot of, people out there that have an agenda. I do believe that's true, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We're in a free country.
It's a complicated puzzle.
Yeah,
Human
it's
nutrition, it's not so easy.
It isn't easy, but for me, it comes down to taste. Taste to me drives a lot of decisions. If it's taste, and with the best information I have available to me right now, is it also healthy? Then I move. And I'm open to any new information or any change at any time that's better information, and I will change immediately. All I can do is the best I can with the information I have, but we're diligent about getting information. And it's funny now that I put out that seed oil thing, and Dr. Pompa, did a post on it who I've grown to really appreciate.
Yeah.
And then someone goes, "Well, you're now, a Trumper." And I was like,
No, I'm not.
I'm like, what? I'm
Opinion on one thing. And
I'm cooking French fries and tallow, and
You're a Trumper.
that's where you go. And I'm using olive oil instead of canola oil, and that's where you go.
come on, man.
Well, and even if beyond the fact that it doesn't matter if it's true or not, it's like, no, I'm talking about, I'm a chef. Let's keep it simple here. This is what I do, and I'm doing the best I can, and it's just funny to me. But I'm not also upset by that. I think it's, in some ways, I think it's great. Everyone's so jazzed up about everything and wants to talk about it, but. Because an engaged society is a healthy society.
At least they're paying attention a little bit more.
100%.
Yeah.
There have been times in my life, and I'm older, where you could talk to kids about, say one word about what's happening, and they just glaze over and move on. Because I work with young people. That's one of the things about being in the restaurant business is I have generations.
This is true.
X, Y, Z, D, Y, N. I don't know what we're on now, but these generations, and every adult says, "Oh, these are the worst. They're lazy. They don't." It's not true. They're humans. Some kids take a little longer to engage, and others don't, and some are like lights out right now. These kids. I have a 19-year-old kid who could run Tarbells, and he's lights out.
Sharp.
Oh, unbelievable, hardworking, and so not all kids are like this.
Sure.
Like I said, it takes more kids to find their passion.
Generation Z, or that whole story. Oh, it's generation.
Yeah, and they just blanketly said, "Oh, they're lazy." I'm like, no. Some maybe appear this way now, but we've also given them a lot of ways to do that.
Yeah.
That we haven't caught up to, and give them permission, to do that. Because getting back to movement and spine, if I may, I think this is my belief. I think humans need hardship a little bit, and they need a little physical hardship,
So
and they need a
true.
little bit of mental hardship in order to, if nothing else, feel alive,
So
but
true.
also to be tested to what works and what doesn't work,
Yeah.
and what path to take. Not the least resistant path, but
Yeah.
Sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not. But I think we all need to be.
Yeah. When do you grow? You don't grow when everything's perfect. Everything's perfect. That's not when I look back at my life that I've grown. It's when I'm suffering.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out, trying to move forward. I agree with you. That pain, that's part of being a human.
Yeah.
You pop out of the womb, there's going to be some pain.
Yeah. Do you let it define you or do you let it to motivate you? I mean, pain is a part of our existence, whether it be physical or mental, right? Yeah. And you either latch onto it and let that be your story, or you go, wow, that was painful. What did I learn? Where can I go? What's the door that just opened or the 3 doors that just opened as a result? And how can I inform myself in the future to try
Channel
to the
that.
best of my ability to avoid that happening again?
Yeah.
But we are the only species that will stub our toe in the same rock twice. That is true.
Or die of a heart attack on Monday morning at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
What species has such a high heart attack rate
Yeah.
Monday morning? And it's true. That's statistically true.
I think you touched on stress being number one.
Yeah.
Negative stress. I think we like positive stress, but or healthy stress. And yes, if you look at, I've never thought additives were good. I love food in its purest form if you're so blessed to be able to eat that way. But I do think everything else was done to extend flavor or extend profit. Most additives,
Yes.
and extend addictiveness, habit forming.
And what about as far as vegetables? Are you? I'll finish up with this, but I'm really a big fan of Dr. You probably read about Stephen Gundry, who's a CT surgeon. He's written extensively about lectins. These inflammatory proteins that are found in vegetables and the seeds of vegetables. And he wrote a book called The Plant Paradox. That's a good one. If you're bored.
No, I'll listen to it.
Plant.
I'm a drive time you.
I like those too.
Drive time
Books on
university.
tape. Yeah, it's good.
Driving, yeah.
But he talks about the way you prepare food and the seeds in food and beans and just basically that these lectins are really inflame your gut. And he's an immunologist too. He's a PhD in immunology. So his books, what I love about them is they're 2 inches thick, but a third of it's bibliography. He's a scientist. I mean, I've even went and looked and read some of the data when he makes a statement. But he talks a lot about the way you prepare food and how we're predators to plants. And if you don't remove the skin or the seeds, that can really wreck your gut. I'm curious if you've read anything about that. Like tomatoes are a classic example. I used to eat tomatoes every day of my life. I love tomatoes. And the lycopene is really good for prostate, right? Yeah. But those seeds can really inflame some people.
Yes.
Do you have?
Well, I think that we're all there's not one size fits all. I think all humans react differently to different things, and it could be genetic. I'm not a doctor or a geneticist, but what I do believe as a broad statement, inflammation is the biggest threat other than unhealthy stress. I think people that are very healthy, very active, aggressively, pushing their bodies, and high level athletes can kind of eat whatever they want. I hate to say it, to a degree, because your body doesn't read labels, by the way. It just is like, oh, what's this? It's going to take care of it no matter what, for the most part. But inflammation is the big word, and that comes in all different sources. And I don't think we've dug into that as a group of scientists and doctors and humans enough.
Yeah.
But we all, if we're in tune with our bodies, can recognize when we have inflammation.
Yeah.
So I always live like the latest trend. So 15 years ago, I went gluten-free because it became a thing, right? So I lived like that for 3 months, just when I wanted to see what my customers experienced when they went out and stuff and what I cooked like. And immediately I felt like I had less joint pain and toe pain. And I just thought I was getting old. So you label it like I'm a doctor. Oh, I'm getting old. That's why I don't get to eat per week. But no, it was just inflammation. I'm not, but I was addicted to gluten. I would have a baguette as a snack on a Tuesday at 10 and then have a loaf of bread for lunch, or I'd eat
How'd you stay so thin?
Well, I just burned up a lot of energy. I just don't stay still. And I was also younger, and I think I was kind of born that way, but harder now, by the way, as I gracefully go through the years. But I think that, inflammation is the biggest threat to our bodies. And I think we all carry so much of it. The body, that's how the body reacts to poison, if you will, or some threat is inflammation.
Yeah.
And so the threat can come in so many forms. And I don't know that there's one thing. I don't know this gentleman's book, but I will say a joke that a friend of mine, a meatologist, said to me. He goes,
Meatologist.
"Yeah, vegetables are what my food eat."
That's funny.
Well, this dude only eats beef.
Yeah.
Period. Like
strange.
literally.
Yeah.
Beef. And he looks great.
Yeah.
I mean, he may kick the bucket tomorrow from blockage, but whatever.
Blockage. Not enough
But
fiber.
he'll be really healthy.
Yeah.
Dead.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So last question for you. You're starting some project across the street. What's that project?
It has started last month in March of 2025 because I know this is going to be evergreen, live forever. So we, this project kind of folds into two things. Three really. One, I always like to do things with people I really think are great.
Okay.
Kurt Kramer and Charles Gerkovich and the George Oliver people took this building on, bought it, and just put a bunch into it, more than the money, because people throw around the money. Abby, Kurt's wife, is a designer, and they just did a great job of just making this building like come alive and be very relevant. I went on a hike with him, a very tough hike. A friend of mine put together. We now call it the hike from hell. Everyone broke something on it.
Whoa.
It was brutal.
Whoa.
And I ran out of water on this hike.
Is this in Arizona?
Yeah, it was supposed to be. We went from like Flagstaff to Sedona without a trail.
Okay.
Essentially, I'm exaggerating a little because I have to make myself seem cooler. But at any rate, it was a long and arduous hike. It was supposed to be like 3.5, 4 hours. It ended up being 9.5, and I ran out of water.
Wow.
So Kurt was doing this project and needed someone to do food service to the building, and I traded the agreement to do it for some water. What people will do for water.
Yeah. When you're in the desert, you do a lot for water.
Yeah, it was really. Yeah, it was in bad shape.
That was it.
So bad that I agreed. No, I'm kidding. So no, Kurt and Charles are great, and Abby. And so we've agreed to do food service for it, which is essentially this awesome atrium cafe, which just opened last month. And it is coffee, breakfast, lunch, cocktails, and wine bar. And that's a service to the building, and anyone can come from the outside. But it's primarily to elevate the experience of those that are there.
Okay.
That's what we do. And then on top of that, the catering business I started, we have the right to do all the catering for the building. And there's just a lot of great venues in there. We do it primarily for the office tenants, but we've done at least 60% of our parties that are from the community that want this great central location for a really cool party. Like there's a speakeasy they built.
Oh, cool.
And we've done, I think, 6 parties in there. And it's so beautiful.
Because I was wondering, back in the day, because you had a restaurant across the street called Barmouche. I'm like, you only do 2 projects if you can walk to them. I was like, is that part of it? You don't want to manage locations?
Well, thank you for bringing up a point of pain. I am inherently lazy. Everyone knows this now. When having a wife and kids I did that on purpose. I wanted to be a great husband and father, and so I didn't want to be traveling. I did have restaurants in Colorado when I first had the kids, and I was traveling a lot, and I was like, this is not what I want my life to be.
It's not good.
And so I unwound all that, and and I just did that. But now, the kids are older, and they're kind of everything's shifting, so I can have the ambitious side of myself. So this was perfect. It was across the street again, and it's been great. We did a party for 200 last night, and it was just so much fun. It's a beautiful place.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, where can people find you, Mark Tarbell? You're famous in this community. Anyone listening?
They can't find me, but Carly at tarbells.com.
Okay. That's the best way to get a hold of you.
She's my gatekeeper. Well, you can text me or email me, but I have, this is an embarrassing truth, but as of this morning, I have 58,000 unread emails. So if that tells you a little bit about.
Wow, you are busy.
Well, I'm busy, but I'm also, I don't know, I have a hard time paying attention to things that bore me. They call it ADD, but that's bad. That was a bad joke. I'm crossing that one.
No, I've got that too.
I
love ADD. It's normal.
Yeah. No, it's just that so much volume of information, and I'm a more forward, proactive, like busy, hand boots on ground type of person. That's my natural makeup. So I'm not an office person. I don't have an office. I had an office at Tarbell's, and I built a wine room in it just so that I would never go to it.
Revenue generating
other
space.
than for pleasure. I won't go into it because there's wine in there. Yeah, I'm a backpack, and that's my office, a laptop, and
Low
and
overhead
a
spot.
car
Yeah.
that has Bluetooth, which I love.
Yeah.
Such a great invention. Life is good.
Beautiful. Hey, thanks for today.
You
I
bet.
really, really appreciate you taking time out
Awesome.
and your
Glad to be
new
here.
projects. Looking forward to that. I hope today's episode helps you stand taller in your own shoes and that you try out Tarbell's creations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.